Welcome, welcome back to the Bees Like That podcast. As always, I'm your host Chris, and as always, Chris is unprepared. I don't have everything situated the way I'd like. I always just do, I don't know, my brain just works crazy like that. Oh, you gotta forgive me. At least by now I know that if you're still tuning in, this is a par for the course. You know that you're about to just deal with a little bit of this anyway. So let's get started. Man, so it's, what is it, day 6, Black History Month? That's incredible, man. And I was chatting with my wife this morning about, just, how the morning go, about different stuff. And I've known this stuff, but during Black History Month, stuff just hit different, when you reflect on it and you comprehend the meaning behind it, right? So in my current role, I'm the first and only in a bunch of categories. Not only that, but in my previous roles, I'm the first and only. And I was considering that in combination with the feelings that I have and that I share about being called to do certain work, and how in my young adult life and in teenage and adolescent years, I struggled to find a connection with something. What I couldn't and didn't see or understand back then was that I was being built for this. I was being built, constructed. God was constructing me for something bigger. And I have a belief in my heart that it is what I do now. And what I mean by what I do now is maybe not literally my job title or how I function in a professional capacity, but what I mean is you're going to hear me continue to say this, the delivery of messages of hope, better yet, experience, strength, and hope, specifically having to do with recovery from substances and dependence from substances. I've shared that it is important to me, and I believe that it is a responsibility that in some way each person who is recovering on a daily basis from the disease of addiction, that in some way we keep visible a practical, realistic, accessible version of recovery that does not include a prescription for disability, which is so often given by quote-unquote experts who one of the initial requisite criteria for support is that you bend the knee to the degree, something that I refuse to do. And in honor of Black History Month, I will state the reasons why in specific, and perhaps not any specific order, but in such a way that it's clear that people understand. So it was true that my ancestors, my early ancestors in this country, were forbidden our native language from whatever country we were from. Africa is not a country, it's a continent. So there are many other countries within the continent of Africa. So the different dialects from different regions in Africa. We were disallowed our religious practices, which I think we still were able to in versions practice, hidden underneath different things, and then mixed in with and kind of perverted by Christianity. We were forbidden to read or write the English language. We were allowed to speak it, but in a pidgin version. Moving forward from there, it was myriad battles, fought, won, lost in pursuit of suffrage before we began to see black Americans in politics or being able to vote. Education, being able to use Western education systems to educate ourselves, which, if you think on it, is essential to begin to thrive and flourish in a country where that is the dominant culture and education system. We don't have ours. So we must adapt and learn to survive. So my point is that I'm highlighting these things to give the audience an understanding that these education systems were almost entirely developed without us in mind, in the way that in any way it was meant for us to better ourselves or to progress or become informed and educated. We ended up being able to until you reach today. Then we have HBCUs and otherwise institutions of black and higher learning, which is fantastic. But still, I hold the opinion that in large part, these systems and the things that are taught in the educational system, and this isn't to malign it because I value education and information, I think is probably one of the most valuated resources that any human being can have or access. I think it's a mistake made by quite a few people. But that would be the reason why, if it now is just accessible and not even completely, I mean, there are still some obstacles. I'm fortunate to live in a part of the country where it's extremely accessible to people like me. But still understanding that this education system was not built with me in mind or with having the goal in mind for people who look like me to find success, although we do now. So what I chose to do with my education and training was to access these things and use these systems to my betterment. I mean, how better does one essentially find a cheat code? Makes sense to me. So this is why I don't completely undervalue our education system, even though American education system has gone down significantly. I do value personal achievement, and I don't take that away from any one individual. But however, I will never look at a person's degree and diploma on the wall and credentials and say, wow, that is precisely where the human experience lives. Because the only human experience that lives in that degree or credentials is respected to the individual who holds them, right? That's their experience. That's all that I see when I look up on that wall, is that there's someone who could stick around, continue to show up, work hard, right? And probably are a bit irresponsible with money. That's what I see. Personally, this is just my perspective. Far more value that I place far more value on experiences that are lived by people that are then observed, written about, and taught from the books that these people hold degrees from institutions on, in, from, etc. I guess we'll call it my open defiance to this. I've not asked anyone But from gauging from reactions from more than a few people, it seems to me that some have a belief that I'm angry with them. That is a subject we can cover a different time. You probably know where I would go with that. I don't hold anger for people who hold degrees or who have gotten their training from other sources besides the experiences that I've had. So our lived experiences are not the same. They have degrees that make them experts on my life, but they've not lived the life that I have. I'm not angry with them about that. I just want to be clear on that. But I do think that there should be an understanding that when you are around your peers, and I'll categorize your peers in this way, people who also are pursuing degrees and credentials that you currently have, but also who share the similar life experience that you have. They just don't have the education and training. I don't have a problem with you holding your credentials and training those people on what you know, but you cannot possibly train me or people who have lived through what I've lived through on our life and experiences. That to me, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there ain't nobody else here but me, but call me crazy. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But people are human, and if you feel like your identity is being challenged, which I guess, I don't know, perhaps it is. I'm not intentionally challenging a person's identity, but perhaps it might be a part of what's going on. And if at least that person feels that is a real experience for them in the moment, I can't then argue that it's not, because they're actually feeling that. I just want them to know that I shouldn't, and I try my best not to judge them too harshly. As a practical matter, just on, the education and training. You have been sold a false bill of goods and told since I don't know how long that these things qualify you. Now, what I would argue is that you're certified. You're not qualified. I happen to, however, be qualified to speak to these issues. One, because I'm from the community. Two, I've lived. It's my life that you're trained on, but not lived. And you will hear me continue to talk about this until I'm blue in the face, because it continues to be a pervasive and just caustic thorn in the side of my soul and psyche. So I have a strong desire to openly resist this stuff, but not the people, because I believe that people, even though ill-trained and misinformed, can come around. I know this to be true because I've done it and continue to do it. But as I say, I should not judge these people too harshly until such a time that they foolishly, although very humanly, but foolish nonetheless, resist the truth in what I'm saying and want to rebut and push back fervently and emphatically that in fact, no, they are qualified. And then it comes the whole identity thing. And also, to take it a bit further, if you've done harmful things under this false belief, believing that you are qualified, you've undoubtedly done some unintentional harm. Still, I'm not as upset with you personally as I am with what you've done or continue to do. This can be remedied. I almost said easily, but the remedy is simple, but the application may be found to be difficult. What would it be? and let you take a guess. In combination with all of what I've just talked about, I can also tell, in another reason why I shouldn't, or I should do my best not to judge you too harshly, and why I should do my best not to become upset with you personally. There's a bunch of reasons for that, but here's one. I can tell that something has happened to you. And this is something that you still largely don't have a good idea about how to handle or deal with. This is real, people. This is real. And it might be the case that although incompletely, the attempt made by individuals is to fill that void or to heal that injury with work, achievement, accomplishment. These things, the affirmation that just by default comes along with these things, can be powerful motivators for individuals to continue to seek higher and higher and higher. I get it. What I've seen in what I speculate that I've seen, and I base this on anecdotal stuff and intuition and just reason, deductive logic, and just fancying myself as a reflective person. Moral injury might occur more often for these people. Follow me, I'll tie this back in for you. Who refuse to accept the fact that people from my community, so I'm talking again about addicted people who suffer from a dependence on substances and a host of other pathology or illness. It's difficult for them to accept the fact that some of us, this is going to rock some of you, some of us deliberately choose malady over healing. Because the proposition of healing terrifies us so much that in our mind, even if incorrect, even if completely off base, even if wacky as hell, we decide that I would rather deal with this, my current station, level of dysregulation, pain, depression, etc. I would rather continue this because I basically know how to navigate this stuff. And what you're telling me on the other side of this comes more pain, more hard work, a little more uncertainty, maybe a lot more uncertainty, no guarantee for a positive outcome for every effort that I make. Yeah. I would suggest again that even though these things are true, no level of, and this is my opinion, no level of transformational change, at least in my life, existed. No change other than that comes automatically with the passage of time. But no change occurred in my life independent of effort. And I mean real effort. Not I woke up and I made a call. I'm talking about I got up, and even though discouraged, I showed up. Even though still shaky. Hey y'all, when I got clean and sober, my hands still shook like this for about 8-9 months. I still had the shakes. My nervous system was still just bonkers for almost a year. But I still showed up. But they sometimes, and I've seen it, I know this to be true because I got the same education and training as a lot of the people who would prefer a knee to the degree. This intentional choice made by some of my peers in addiction is kind of glossed over. It's framed in misleading context, and it might lead one to believe that there's no conscious and direct intention behind choosing that. They say that no reasonable person would do or make such choices. That ain't true. I can tell you it's not true because I've been there. Now, please do not mistake any of what I've just said for a suggestion in any way that I hold or that I think anyone should hold any undue foreboding. Please do not make that mistake because that is farther from the truth than could be possible. What I'm talking about, and some call this the new optimism or the more appropriate optimism, is reality, realism. Touted by some to be skepticism, but I would highly debate that because I am a skeptic. And it's really difficult for me too because I'm a skeptic and a cynic, and sometimes it's difficult to distinguish between the two. Skepticism can exist in healthy amounts. I think that skepticism is needed, but leaning too far into cynicism, I think, is a mistake as well. At any rate, I digress. Take all of these things, how would I say, bundle them neatly, package them up, shake it up, and reframe it and restructure it in whatever way that you need to take this message away. And this is something that I really do my best to embody, to demonstrate, and to encourage other people to do. So much meaning in life, in relationships. It should be clear when I say in life, but I want to make sure that this definition resonates. So in relationships, in your work, in your education, in your parenthood, in your hobbies, in your interests, so much meaning can be imbued by taking things seriously. I get it. You run a risk of being labeled as a person who can't relax, the person who is uptight. But let me ask you this. Would you rather suffer these labels, right? And then take the long road and just bank on faith that people, no matter what kind of collateral or reputation preceded you with them, that once and in time they experience you, that time is the best indicator of intention. I'll take that. right? Because what you can't do is you can't stop people from talking about you. And what you can't do is you can't stop people from not liking you. But what you can do in a world full of people who soft step, who backbite, who manipulate, who sidestep, subvert, bureaucratically poll vote one over another, this disingenuous, self-interest driven caca, you can be a person who maintains, even if it's small, a boundary of honor, respect, dependability, honesty. And be a light for someone. Right? I am ecstatic that I can be a demonstration for people from my community of something visible, practical, and accessible. They can look, and I'm telling you, people who know me can, or knew about me, can look at me now and be like, wow, that is wild. I knew that guy. He was a freaking wild card. I knew that guy. Everybody counted him out. I knew that guy. There was not a lot of hope. I knew that guy. I thought he didn't have a shot. Because I witnessed him fall over and over and over and over. Along with that moral injury, another thing that can happen is people lose themselves in that. And they then are hanging on to something different. And it's not the same as the fresh, energetic, idea, community-driven energy that existed before. It's something that's changed, and it's different. It's emptier. It's hollow. There's no texture, right? It's just polish. And what ends up happening too is like the lower parts of human nature start to emerge, which is tribalism. We become more territorial and possessive, and it stops being about the things that it should be about, which is in our community service, all the stuff. And it starts being more about possession, an identity that really isn't accurate anymore. It starts to become about winning. It starts to become more about me versus you. And this is really unfortunate because at that time, people literally get hurt. And I don't mean like me and another peer are going to meet and have a fist fight. That would be ridiculous. But I mean, due to lack of attention and the same level of dedication and work to the work that existed before that doesn't exist anymore, people get hurt. And this is really unfortunate, but it's true. One of the reasons why that happens, along with what I just listed, is as human beings in existing in this way, we become more prone to making what are called type 2 errors, or the failure to place a fine point on anything and to accept that there are differences in things. We play this vague game of ambiguity, and we don't, as a friend of mine likes to say, don't ever really land the plane. We just kind of dance around, all these emotional setups to get people to react, and then just kind of guide them in different ways. So essentially what I'm saying is you're just manipulating now. And this is unfortunate. And I think that God, for a reason, held me back for so many years, and refined me and built my skills and wanted me to get to a level where I was able to be more patient and graceful in with this kind of environment. Because even like 10 years ago, I would never have been able to kind of survive. I was easily manipulated in ways back then that I'm not anymore. Even though back then I could see these things happening, but still impulsive, but not as impulsive. And yeah, I mean, that's not an invitation, but try it. Try it. Try it. We're a lot sharper these days. In closing, what I would like to say is, if you are a person who you feel like you have something to say, you feel like you have a message, lean into it. Begin to develop that idea. You never know where it might take you. Now, how that plays out for an individual, I don't know. I saw it, like I knew right away after an experience that I had with the dependency system. I knew where I was supposed to, like that direction that I was supposed to go. It may not be as clear for you, but even if it's not, I still encourage you to try on different hats, look at different things. There's an idea that if a person does that they're a dreamer and they have no direction. I think that's a mistake, man. Because forcing yourself into a thing just so you can have a thing, oh man, that just seems like a prison to me. That just feels really, really restrictive and not a lot of room to grow or breathe or make mistakes or develop into the person that God wants you to be. Whew. Yeah. That was a good talk, man. That was a good talk. Yeah, happy day 6 of Black History Month, man. And this is an important time for my people. It's an important time for me. I feel like I'm contributing in a meaningful way to not just the formation of current Black history, but also to the construction of a more accurate narrative and representation of my people, especially Black males, young Black males, because we belong everywhere. If you can't get with it, I don't even know. I don't even know what to tell you. I don't even know what to tell you. Times are changing. You know what I'm saying? The water's getting high. There's plenty of boats to go around. But there's also plenty of sea to drown. You dig what I'm saying? Anyway, man. If you like to do it on the way in, please think about doing it on the way out. Hit that like, subscribe, and share so you can stay up to date on all the crazy, wacky, fun, zany tomfoolery, educational, and veritable surplus of information that we talk about here on the Bees Like That podcast. Peace, y'all.